I gotta say, when you really start digging into martial arts, not just like the local dojo, but, all around the world,
Yeah.
it's like, whoa,
Yeah,
it's so much bigger than you think.
it is.
It's like opening up this treasure chest
Yeah.
where you find, I don't know, it's not just like different punches and kicks. It's like
Yeah.
you're finding whole cultures,
Yeah.
like philosophies and histories,
Yeah.
all kind of wrapped up in how people fight.
Exactly. Yeah.
And you mentioned you were really keen to sort of get a handle on this whole, like, huge world of martial arts.
Yeah.
And that's what we're doing today.
That's the plan.
We've got the Way of the Warrior here.
Yeah.
And we're going to be pulling out, I don't know, hopefully the most interesting, most insightful stuff we can find
Yeah. I mean, I think we can.
about martial arts from all over, like literally all over.
Yeah. We've got India, South Asia, China, East Asia, Southeast Asia, Oceania,
And we're not stopping there.
Europe, Africa, the Americas, the whole shebang.
We're going everywhere.
We're going around the world with martial arts.
So
This will be quite a trip.
yeah, and this is the thing, right? This isn't just like going to be a catalog of like,
Right.
this does this, that does that.
This is the roundhouse kick, and this is that kind of thing.
Yeah. We're looking at like where these things came from,
Exactly.
what they meant to the people who did them.
Yeah, how they fit into society.
Yeah, how they fit into,
The
exactly.
history, the philosophy, the culture, the whole 9 yards.
The whole 9 yards.
The whole, yeah.
And think of it as like you're getting the,
Right.
you're getting the essential understanding,
It's distilled,
essence of it all.
the distilled, yeah, the key takeaways
Yeah.
without having to like wade through,
Without doing all the work yourself.
yeah, without having to wade through like volumes. It's
Right.
volumes and volumes.
Exactly. That's the point of these deep dives,
Yeah.
is to give you that shortcut to
Yeah.
being well informed. Right, to give you that shortcut.
Yeah.
So the mission here
The mission is to give you
is to give you those like aha moments, the kind of like, oh wow,
the surprises.
surprising connections, like, oh, I didn't realize.
The connections you don't expect.
Yeah, and the unique things that each of these traditions brings.
Each one has its own little quirks, its own little story.
Yeah, has its own little
Its own flavor.
flavor. Right, okay.
Exactly.
So let's dive straight in.
Let's do it.
We're going to start with India and South Asia.
Okay, sounds good.
And
I'm excited.
the book starts with a dedication to young Lee Crudelli and Heron Lee Crudelli.
Okay.
And then it kind of kicks off with this idea, right, from the author Chris Crudelli,
Yeah.
that like the core purpose of martial arts,
Yeah.
like the real heart of it, isn't actually like destruction or
Right.
violence.
Not about hurting people.
No, but it's to heal, it's to enhance, it's to preserve life.
Yeah, it's about self-improvement and growth.
Yeah, it's about self-improvement. And I think
And protecting yourself and others. Yeah.
that kind of like flips the image
It does.
that we usually have on its head.
Yeah, you think of martial arts, you think of fighting,
Yeah.
but it's really about so much more than that.
It's about so much more than that. And
It's about personal development. It's about discipline.
yeah,
It's about, as you said, healing, all of those things.
it's about healing.
Yeah.
And so I think that's a really interesting way to kind of kick this whole thing off. And then he kind of goes into like a
Yeah.
way of organizing this huge amount of material.
Right.
And he basically breaks things down into these like 3 big categories.
Okay. Makes sense.
You've got traditional, sport-based, and then weapon-based,
Right. That covers a lot of ground.
which is going to help us kind of like navigate this whole,
Yeah, it's a good framework.
this whole like
Organize everything.
variety of stuff.
Yeah, exactly.
Okay, so one of the first like big stories that he tells is about Bodhidharma,
Yeah.
this Indian monk,
Yeah.
right? And he's kind of legendary, right?
He is.
So he's this Indian monk.
Yeah.
And the story goes that he treks all the way over to China
Okay.
in like the 6th century
Wow.
and ends up at this place called the Shaolin Temple
Okay, the Shaolin Temple. Yeah, I've heard of that.
that you've probably heard of, right?
Yeah.
And the story kind of goes that
Yeah.
he found the monks there a little bit, I don't know.
A little out of shape.
Yeah, a little out of shape.
A little too focused on the spiritual side of things.
Keep you a little too focused,
Yeah.
on the spiritual matters.
Maybe not so much on the physical.
And not enough on the physical fitness.
Right.
So he kind of like introduces
Yeah.
Zen principles,
Okay.
but also what are essentially like yogic exercises.
Right.
That just so happen to also be martial in nature.
Yeah.
Right.
Interesting.
So it's this interesting blend of like, oh, we're developing our spirit, our mind,
Yeah.
but also our body.
And our bodies in a way that can be used for combat as well.
Right, exactly.
Yeah.
But what's really interesting is is that there's this kind of like debate
Okay.
around his role in actually creating these things called the Yi Jin Jing
Yeah.
and the Shi Sui Jing.
I'm not familiar with those.
So the Yi Jin Jing and the Shi Sui Jing are basically seen as these early
Okay.
Qigong manuals and
Qigong.
Qigong,
Okay.
if you're not familiar with that.
Yeah.
It's kind of like, think of exercises that are about
Okay.
cultivating this.
Cultivating.
Yeah, cultivating and moving vital energy through your body,
Okay.
often through breath work.
Okay, I get it. Like energy work.
Yeah, exactly, like energy work.
Yeah.
And so some people say, well, Bodhidharma, brought these ideas
Brought them from India?
from India
Okay.
and like codified them for the Shaolin monks.
Right.
Other people say, no. This stuff
was already there.
was already there
Okay.
in China. He just kind of like
You just added to.
helped develop it.
Okay.
Interesting.
Right. So it's kind of a debate about
I think,
who gets the credit.
yeah, I think this debate
Right.
tells us something
Freedom.
really interesting about like how
Yeah.
knowledge and traditions, they
evolve over time.
they evolve and they
And the stories change and the attributions change.
get attributed to
Yeah.
different people, over time.
Yeah. It's fascinating how that happens.
It's fascinating, right?
Yeah.
Okay, so we're still kind of hanging out in South Asia here,
Okay.
and we come across this thing called Shastravidya,
Shastravidya.
which is pretty interesting.
What is that?
This is like a weapons-focused
Yeah.
military training syllabus
Okay.
from the ancient Sikh warriors.
Oh, wow.
Okay, so
So very weapons oriented.
very weapons-oriented, and what's really interesting about this is that it's believed to have like a divine origin,
A divine origin.
going all the way back to Guru Nanak,
Okay.
who was like the founder.
The founder of Sikhism.
Yeah, the founder of Sikhism.
Right.
And then later on, this guy, Guru Hargobind,
Okay.
really champions this idea of the warrior saint
Oh, wow.
and like encourages this training in self-defense.
Okay.
So you can kind of see how this
Yeah.
art, it was like a direct response.
To a need to protect themselves.
But need to
right?
protect,
Yeah.
their community, their people.
Right. They had to be able to defend themselves.
Yeah.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And we actually see the influence of that even today in Gatka,
Gatka.
which is
Yeah.
the Sikh martial art
Okay.
that's still practiced.
Yeah.
So it's like this really
That's a living tradition.
living tradition.
Yeah.
And a really powerful example
Yeah.
of how deeply martial arts can be tied up with
Yeah.
religious and cultural identity,
Absolutely.
and how they kind of evolve
Yeah.
alongside
Alongside the needs of the community.
community's needs and beliefs.
Yeah, it makes a lot of sense.
So we're going to change pace a little bit.
Okay.
We're going to head to a place called Mizoram in India.
Mizoram. Okay.
Now we're going to look at this thing called Imbun wrestling.
In-boom wrestling.
Now, imagine a wrestling ring,
Okay.
but it's tiny. It's like 15, 16 feet across.
That's small.
It's tiny, right?
Yeah. Usually they're much bigger.
And here's the thing. You don't win by pinning.
Oh.
The goal
They win.
is to lift your opponent
Lift them off the ground.
completely off the ground
Oh, wow.
within 3 rounds. And each round
Is
is
it like long rounds?
30 seconds to a minute.
Short rounds? Wow.
Short, tiny rounds.
So you got to act fast.
You gotta act fast.
Yeah.
And they use belts
Belts.
held tight for leverage.
Wow, that's interesting.
So you're in this tiny space.
Yeah.
You gotta lift the guy off the ground.
That's a very specific skill set.
It's a very specific,
Yeah.
right,
Yeah.
skill set, and it sounds like it demands
Yeah.
a really different kind of
Yeah,
strength and strategy.
absolutely. Yeah, you got to be explosive. You got to be,
Yeah, you gotta
know how to use those belts.
you gotta know how to use those
Mhm.
belts,
It's fascinating.
and it just shows you how like the
Yeah.
environment and like the tools that you have available
The tools, yeah.
can like really shape
Totally shape the art.
the nature of the fighting.
Yeah, it's not just about the techniques themselves.
Yeah, it's not just about
It's
exactly.
about the context.
It's about the context in which they're done.
Yeah, yeah.
Okay, next up we've got Akikiti
Akikiti.
from Nagaland,
Okay.
also in India.
Okay.
And this is like a kicking art
A kicking art. Okay.
that's part of like
Okay.
tribal ceremonies.
Okay.
Now, here's what's really unique about this.
What's that?
You can only use your feet
Only your feet.
for both striking
Okay.
and blocking.
So no hands at all.
No hands at all.
Wow, that's interesting.
And the aim is to like knock your opponent down
Down. Okay.
in this like circular ring.
Circular ring.
And unlike a lot of other martial arts
Okay.
where you have like a rigid set,
Like a very formal system.
yeah, like a formal
Yeah.
syllabus.
Yeah, yeah.
Akikiti doesn't
Doesn't
have a formal syllabus.
So it's more about just like Natural.
It's more about
tendency.
raw skill and stamina and flexibility.
Okay, interesting.
What's really interesting is that
Yeah.
even though historically
Okay.
the Naga tribes,
Yeah.
they had a bit of a reputation as headhunters,
Oh, wow.
right?
That's intense.
Akikiri seems to be more about
More about settling disputes.
settling disputes, yeah.
Okay.
And restoring honor
Okay.
without going to like extreme violence.
Right. So more controlled form of combat.
Yeah, often with
I really dig it.
relatively light kicks.
Okay.
So it's this really interesting example of, again,
Yeah.
a martial art.
Yeah.
That's not
Not just about fighting.
just about fighting.
Yeah.
It's about,
About the social aspect.
yeah, the social aspect. And, you know,
Managing conflict.
managing conflict
Yeah.
and establishing these
Boundaries.
boundaries
Yeah.
and resolving things
Yeah.
in this like
In a controlled way.
controlled environment.
Yeah, that makes sense.
And I think the fact
Yeah.
that it emphasizes
Yeah.
limited techniques and
Right.
light contact
Yeah.
for settling these disputes
Yeah.
is really telling.
It is. It says a lot about the culture
Okay.
and their
It
values.
says a lot about,
Yeah.
okay, now we're going to go to something completely different again.
Okay.
Kalaripayattu
Kalaripayattu.
from Kerala.
Yeah.
This is just captivating.
What is it?
The training space itself
Okay.
feels almost sacred.
Sacred.
Yeah. With
Really
like
is.
shrines
Dedicated.
dedicated
Wow.
to these ancient masters
Okay.
and like a guardian deity.
Wow, that's interesting.
And the training covers
a
like
wide range of things.
a huge range.
Okay.
You've got empty hand forms. You've got martial dances,
Okay.
weapons training.
Weapons training.
They even have traditional healing practices.
Wow.
And they kind of like
they switch it up
emphasize a different one
each day.
each day.
Okay.
They also aim to cultivate like
Okay.
7 key attributes.
7 key attributes.
Things like strength,
Strength. Okay.
patience,
Patience.
the ability to command,
And
even like the artistic expression of the art.
wow. So it's not just physical.
It's not just physical.
It's mental. It's spiritual.
It's the whole.
It's holistic.
It's holistic, right?
Yeah,
And get this.
what it practice.
How do they practice?
By kicks. By repeatedly kicking this
Kicking what?
parrot ball.
A leather ball?
Right.
Okay. That's suspended in the air.
Suspended.
And they gradually raise it
higher and higher.
higher and higher.
Wow.
So,
That's an interesting way to train.
right.
Yeah.
What's so fascinating about this is
Yeah.
its holistic nature, as you said.
Yeah.
It's this blend of physical training
Yeah.
with spiritual
Yeah.
and even medical knowledge.
Medical knowledge. Wow.
And those 7 attributes
Yeah.
that they're going for, they really
They really
demonstrate.
develop the whole person.
Yeah, they want to develop
Yeah.
the whole person.
It's very holistic.
And that image of kicking that ball
Yeah.
higher and higher
Yeah.
is just like
It's a great visual.
such a vivid example of like,
Hey.
wow, you have to be
dedication.
dedicated
Yeah.
to do this.
Absolutely.
Okay.
What else we got?
Closely linked
Yeah.
to Kalaripayattu
Okay.
is this thing called Marma Adi,
Marma Adi.
also from Kerala. This is like the art,
The art of what?
vital point therapy.
Vital point therapy.
And it uses like very specific pressure points.
Okay.
And they'll use like fingers,
Fingers. Okay.
heels,
Elbows.
elbows to stimulate these points.
Okay.
Now, they do this
For what purpose?
for both healing
For
and
how?
also potentially
related.
to cause harm.
Oh, wow.
And it's very deeply connected
Yeah.
to Ayurvedic medicine
Ayurvedic medicine.
and this understanding of the
Big-
body's like 72,000 nadis,
72,000?
which are like
What are those?
subtle energy channels.
Oh, okay. So
it's like
energy work.
it's a very targeted
Yeah.
and precise understanding
Like the Baha.
of the human body
Yeah. Wow, that's incredible.
and how these points can be
Yeah.
manipulated.
Yeah.
Now this next one
Okay.
is pretty intense.
What is it?
It's called Vajra Mushti,
Vajra Mushti.
which is a Hindi term
Okay.
that means
What does it mean?
grasping a thunderbolt.
Grasping a thunderbolt. Okay.
And apparently, fights involved competitors
competitors
wearing spiked knuckle dusters.
spiked knuckle duster.
Yeah, like imagine knuckle dusters, but with spikes on them.
That's brutal.
Brutal, right?
Yeah.
And the book actually has this drawing from the late 19th century
Okay.
that shows one of these bouts,
Yeah.
and it's pretty
It's pretty intense.
intense.
Yeah, I can imagine.
It's not for the faint of heart.
No, definitely not.
And this just gives us a little glimpse
Yeah.
into like
A different time.
a different time, yeah.
Yeah.
A more raw
Yeah.
and unregulated form
Yeah,
of combat.
Right.
You know?
When things were a little more
where they're literally wearing
Yeah, no holds barred.
spiked weapons.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's fascinating to see how things have changed.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Okay, so we're going to move on to something called Nata.
Nata.
Now, this is another really intriguing one.
What is it?
It's a dance-based martial art
Dance-based. Okay.
that uses these finger movements
Movements.
that are drawn from ancient Indian dance
Okay.
and yoga.
Oh, wow.
And while it's not widely practiced today,
Yeah.
it likely involved things like finger locks,
Finger lock.
wrist locks,
Okay.
and techniques for disarming opponents
Disarming. Okay.
using joint locks
Okay.
and pain compliance.
So it's about controlling the opponent.
Yeah, it's about
Through these small, intricate movements.
controlling the opponent.
Yeah.
The inspiration for this comes from Shiva,
Shiva.
and his form as Natarasha, which means Lord of the Dance.
Lord of the Dance. Wow.
And it even incorporates yogic elements.
Yogic element.
And there are references to boxing and joint locking
Okay.
in these early Buddhist texts.
Wow. So it's like a fusion of all these different
It's a fusion.
traditions.
It's amazing how these seemingly different worlds
Yeah.
can kind of blend like this.
Yeah, it's fascinating.
And it shows you how, like,
Yeah.
movement,
Yeah.
whether it's intended for art
Right.
or for combat,
Okay.
can share
Fundamental principles.
fundamental principles
Yeah.
and techniques.
Does that make sense?
Right.
Yeah.
And the connection
Yeah.
to both dance and yoga
Yeah.
suggests like a
Focus on fluidity
and control.
and control. Okay. We have a brief mention of Lafi,
Okay.
but with a more recent history.
Okay.
So the British
Okay.
introduced this
The introduced
Yeah.
as a weapon.
as a weapon, yeah,
Okay.
during colonial rule for the police.
Okay.
But the book points out that it was also used
By whom?
by Lathiels
Latials.
who were hired to settle disputes
Okay.
between farmers.
So it had a dual purpose.
Yeah, so it's like,
Yeah.
it served
It served. Yeah, it served
both official and unofficial purposes.
both official and unofficial purposes.
Yeah, interesting.
And it's a good reminder that the adoption
yeah,
and the
the
evolution
martial techniques.
of martial techniques, yeah,
Can be influenced by outside forces.
it'd be influenced by these
By politics.
external powers
By social changes.
and shifting social landscape.
Absolutely. Yeah.
Okay, lastly,
Okay.
in this region,
Okay.
we have kushti,
Kushti.
which is traditional Indian wrestling.
Okay.
And the training sounds just
Intense.
intense.
Right.
Young wrestlers start with limbering up,
Okay.
then they do paired practice,
Okay.
then they train outdoors
Outdoors.
in just a loincloth,
Wow.
focusing on things like rope climbing
Rope climbing.
and push-ups.
Wow.
And get this, they prepare their wrestling pit
How do they do that?
by dragging these heavy logs
Heavy log
or even concrete blocks across it,
across the pit.
across the pit.
Wow.
Sometimes with a teammate, like on top, adding extra weight.
Oh my goodness, that's hardcore.
Hardcore, right.
Yeah.
And the winning move is to throw and
Throw
pin
and
your
pin.
opponent.
Classic wrestling.
Yeah, classic, right.
Yeah.
But it's a real test
It
of
is.
strength and endurance and willpower.
Absolutely. Yeah. That's incredible.
And the fact that like the act
Yeah,
of
yeah.
preparing the pit
Preparing the pit.
becomes part of the training.
Yeah. Yeah.
It's
It's
like-
all part of
It's all part of it, right?
Yeah.
Okay.
Oh, wow.
So that was
That's good luck.
a fantastic overview
Yeah.
of martial arts from India and South Asia.
Yeah, absolutely.
Now, let's turn our attention east
Okay.
to China and East Asia,
China, East
a
Asia,
region that's often seen as
the birthplace of martial arts.
the birthplace of martial arts.
For sure.
And the book actually reminds us
Yeah.
that while China
Yeah.
boasts this like immense
Oh,